All right, my friends, we're now learning a little bit of an explanation of what happened in the story of Purim in the Magilat Esther. Magilat Esther. So first of all, we'll go back a little bit to the beginning of chapter 4 of the Megillah. And if you remember, last time we were with Mordechai. Esther had just gotten married to King Achashverosh. After King Achashverosh had made this ridiculous beauty contest to see who was going to be his wife, and after he killed his first wife, and Esther won the contest, so now she's the queen. All of a sudden comes, and Esther suggests that Mordechai should be the advisor of the king. That's not in the Megillah, but Mordechai becomes the advisor of the king, and he overhears two of the king's advisors. I read that these are the two advisors that he himself replaced, and they decided they're going to try to kill the king, to put poison in the tea or whatever, the wine of the king. And he tells the king, saves the king's life, and the king writes it down in his history book, his chronicles. And then after that, Haman gets picked. Haman is a tremendously rich person. It says that somehow or other he got his hands on a lot of the riches of Nebuchadnezzar that had been taken by Koresh to prison, into his spoils of war. And he was tremendously rich, and the king really likes him, and it forces everyone to bow down to Haman. And Mordechai refuses to bow down because Haman declared himself a god. And Haman gets all angry, and suddenly there awakens in Haman his true soul identity. He hates the Jews. He's an anti-Semite. That's what he is, in the essence of his soul. Hates the Jews. So he decides he's going to get rid of all of the Jews. And he goes to the king and he says, Your Majesty, I'm going to give you money, 10,000, whatever it is, blocks of silver, and to kill the Jews. And the king said, oh, okay, I don't even want the money. Do whatever you want. And he takes his ring off and he gives it to Haman. Now Haman has absolute power. He's riding high. And he makes a decree, throws lots, some sort of dice or something, and he makes, and it comes out to kill all the Jews on the last month of the year. And he threw these lots like a couple of days before Passover, something like that. Passover, and the lots came out that 12 years, in 12 months' time, to kill all the Jews in one day. But he keeps it quiet. He just sends out letters to everybody saying, everybody get ready, sharpen up your weapons. There's one nation that's going to get killed on the 13th. He even tells the date. On the 13th day of, and there's 1 month from today, in Adar, coming up 12 months from today, as everyone is going to kill some certain race of people. I'm not going to tell you who it is. Mordechai Yadet Kal Nashsa, but Mordechai, he found out what was, even though it didn't say which nation was going to be killed, he had a second letter that was prepared to tell everybody what nation it was going to be. But in the first letter that he sent out to everybody, just said, everybody get ready, practice throwing spears and chopping things with your sword. And so it says, but Mordechai found out what was going on, and it said, how did Mordechai know? Rashi says, Bala Chalom Omarlo, some sort of an angel or something told him, Sheaskim Elyonim, that everyone agreed because why? Even the upper powers agreed that there should be this decree on the Jewish people because everyone bowed down to some sort of an idol in the days of Nebuchadnezzar. And also after that, Nebuchadnezzar, that was the Babylonian. And also they got pleasure from the meal of Achashverosh. That's how this whole thing opened up. And there's these different explanations here. It's called Targum Rishon, Targum Sheni. And it says Mordechai knew because Elijah the prophet told him. It's written in Aramaic. And here it says that Mordechai knew because he had the spirit of prophecy. And that's how he knew. What did he know? That this letter that was being mysteriously sent around to kill a certain nation, that certain nation was the Jews. Now, nobody knows about this now except for Mordechai. He's the only one that knows. Mordechai came to the gate of the king. Sorry, one second. Let's go back. It says, again, Mordechai knew everything that was happening. Vayikra Mordechai is Gadav, and Mordechai tore his garments. Vayibas va'ofer, and he put on sackcloth and ashes put on his head. Vayetze b'toch ha'ir, and he went out into the city of Shushan, and he cried out, Zakah Gadol Ma'or. He cried out a bitter cry. Because nobody knew what was going on, what was happening. And he told everyone, told all the Jews why he was crying. And he came to the gate of the king. He came to the gate, he didn't go inside. You're not allowed to come, not allowed to enter the gate of the king unless you're dressed properly. You have to dress honorably, right? You can't go and see the king in your pajamas or something. It's not the way to go in dressed like this. Every country where the word of the king and the new law came, there was great mourning for all the Jews, M-O-U-R. But Tzom Bechi, fasting, weeping, mispaid, like saying eulogies, sak va'efer yutzal rabim, and everyone put on sackcloth and the ashes on their head. All of a sudden, everybody found out why Mordechai was mourning so deeply, all the Jews. Now, I just have to remember over here what's going on. That just shortly before, right? Shortly before the king, a couple of years before, all of the Jews had been invited to the king's meal. They had no idea that something bad was happening. They didn't know. And Mordechai and Haman he had to bow down to Haman. So everybody figured, okay, we'll bow down in order to save our lives. Nobody knew that there was going to be such a terrible decree. No one dreamed that the king hated them so much. And the fact is, the king Achashverosh, he didn't hate them or anybody. He was just easily swayed. So at first he liked the Jews, and then all of a sudden now he likes wants to kill all the Jews. And previously he found out that Mordechai saved his life. He wrote it in a book, but he forgot. Some people say that because the name of God is not mentioned in the Megillah, and it's the only book of the Torah, we said that before, that God's name is not mentioned. So God's name is hinted at. And that one of the ways his name is hinted at is by the name Achashverosh. Achashverosh is also an analogy, a metaphor, whatever you want to call it, for God. for God. Why? Because Achash means after, and Rosh means the beginning. So God, the last and the first are all his. In other words, he started everything and he'll be here after everything is finished. So the king in this case is, if we use that analogy to say that it's God, then it means that God is being swayed now by the powers of evil to agree. What can he do? The Jews deserved this annihilation. They went against God, they angered the king. Okay, now all of a sudden, but the Jews, they don't know what's going on. So all of a sudden comes this terrible decree on the Jews that they're all supposed to be killed in one day. Excuse me. But Tavona Narot Esther, and the maidens that Esther had that were serving her, the Sarisel and her servants, the Agidulon, they said to her, they told her, and the queen was very upset. Okay, what was she upset for? First of all, because she heard that Mordechai, who was her big advisor, and according to some opinions, had not yet informed her what was going on. And we'll see why that there's some support to this in a second. And she sent garments to put on Mordechai and to take off his sackcloth from him, or at least to put these garments over his sackcloth so that it wouldn't be seen, but he didn't receive. Mordechai was endangering himself. It was doing a crazy thing. You can't come into the king's courtyard in sackcloth. It's disrespect to the king, and it could mean death. So, let's be a little bit sort of, how do you say, diplomatic about this. You want to give a message to the king, dress properly, but this touched the very essence of Mordechai. The Jewish people are in terrible, terrible distress. Esther called to her faithful servant. She had a faithful servant called Hasach. And this was her minister that the king put in front of her, and she commanded him to go to Mordechai to find out what's going on. What is happening? Why is it that he's wearing sackcloth and he's crying and he's mourning? Hatach went to Mordechai into the streets of the city, which is before the gate of the king. And Mordechai told him everything that happened, gave him a copy of the whole story, the meaning of the money that Haman wanted to give to the treasures of the king regarding the Jews in order to destroy them. Rashi, Parashat means the meaning. Why was he giving him money? What does this mean? It wasn't just a regular present. And also, as Pashegan Kasavadat, the explanation, the meaning. And I'm sorry, Pashegan means a copy of the decree that was given out in Shushan to destroy all the Jews. Mordechai gave to him. He gave to this Hasach, this servant of Esther, to show to Esther and to tell her and to command her that she should go to the king and plead to him and to request for her people. Now, up to now, Esther did not tell what her people are. And we said for two reasons. That number one, that if he knew that she was a Jew, maybe he wouldn't want to have anything to do with her. That was in the beginning when they was having this beauty contest. And on the other hand, if he found out that she was direct descendant of a king from King Saul, then maybe that would he would want her. And so he wanted to leave it up to God. So she didn't tell who she was. So now it said she should go and request for her people. In other words, she should say, my people are Jews. Okay. Now things are going to be in Esther's hands. We're going to see. Esther gets the message. Hatach went and he told Esther what Mordechai said. And Esther sends back to Mordechai. Vatomer Esther lahatach, vatatzaveo al Mordechai, and he commanded him, this Hatach, go back to Mordechai and tell him that, listen, it's not so simple. Call of the Amelech ve'amidot Amelech yodim. Asher call ish ve'isha asher yavo el Amelech el chatzer ha'penimit. There's a way of singing this. There's a song. There's what's called the trope. It says all the servants of the king and everyone in the king, everybody knows that anyone, man, female, male, comes into the king, into the inner courtyard of the king, and he has not been invited, is he's going to get killed. What do you want me to do, Mordechai? You want me to go into the king? I can't go into the king unless I'm invited. The only people that can come in, and if you do go in, you'll die. You'll die. And there's only one way you won't die is if the king all of a sudden decides to stretch out his scepter, the Melech Sharvit Azav, his golden scepter, sort of like a cane. Then he'll live. But I have not been called into the king for 30 days. The king has now wanted to see me for 1 full month. So maybe the king has some complaint about me, whatever. But if I force it, then we've wrecked. If we have any chance, then it's going to be destroyed. Let's wait. The king will call me in. Maybe we can figure out some way. Then when he calls me, then I can talk to him. What do you say about that, Mordechai? Mordechai received the message that Esther sent. And Mordechai said to give return. He told us Hasach, this servant of, go back to Esther and say like this: Lashiv al Esther, al tedemei benachshich. Don't imagine that you're going to escape from the house of the king with from all the Jews. In other words, don't think that somehow or other you're going to be in the king's house and you'll be safe, right? And that you somehow or other going to escape the fate of all the Jews. Rashi, don't think like it says, "Vayakam kasher demiti al tadami benafshech," means what? Don't have the idea that you can get away when all the Jews are being killed, that you can somehow or other take refuge in the house of the king. If you don't want to risk your life right now on a doubt to go into a king without permission. What does it mean? Esther, you say that you can't go into the king now because maybe the king won't extend his scepter to me and I'll be killed. Because anyone who goes into the king without being invited gets killed, unless the king sticks out a scepter, and maybe he won't stick out a scepter to me. So let's wait. Says, listen, the reason you don't want to go into the king now is because you have a doubt, right? Doubt. Maybe I'll get killed now or maybe not. But I'm telling you that if you don't go in now and take the chance, for sure you're going to get killed later on, because he's going to kill all the Jews, and somehow or other he's going to find that you're a Jew and you're going to get killed also. So don't think you're going to escape from it. This is still Mordechai sending this message back to Esther. If you keep quiet now, then someone else will save the Jews. And you, you and your whole household of your father will be destroyed. And who knows if it was not just for this reason that you became a queen. In other words, here, let's see what Rashi says. Who knows if the king will want you next year? which is the Zaman, the time when he's killing all the Jews. Right? If you want to keep quiet. Who knows if you're going to be killed? You can keep hiding from the Jew, from the king, the fact that you're Jewish, and who knows if he's going to have mercy on you next year. Says, now at this time you must stand in this test. You must stand in the test right now and avoid the time of being killed, which is going to be next year. That's what with all the rest of the Jews. And who knows if this is the imtagil, the gedula, she'ad bot achshav. The whole reason that you became a queen, it wasn't that you became a queen because of your luck, and now all of a sudden this thing fell on you. No, it could be the only reason you became a queen back then was just for this moment. This is the whole reason that you're here, and you became a queen, to make this decision right now. It's your only chance. Go into the king now. Says Esther, okay, I get the point. But Tomer Esther Lashiv al Mordechai, Esther gets the message, and she says to Hatach, go back to Mordechai and tell him, Lech kanos et Yehudim, go and gather up all the Jews that are found in Shushan. Shushan is like the big capital. That's where the king is. But the Jews all over the world. And they should tzom, and they should all fast for me. Val tochlu, val tishtu, and don't eat and don't drink for 3 days. Laila v'yom, day and night. Day and night. Don't eat and don't drink 72 hours. V'gam ani v'narotai, and also me and my women helpers, Atzum king will also fast. And then I'll go to the king. Afterwards, I'll come to the king. Asher lo kadat, against the rules, not being called by surprise. And if I get destroyed, if I get killed, so I'll get killed. At least I'll give it a chance. Asher lo kadat, says Rashi, that it's not the law, it's against the law to go into the king if you're not called. Some people say lo kadat, Medrash Agad, it says, She'arata till now, Karatzon, Ba'onis, Vachshav Karatzon. Up to now, Achashverosh, the king Achashverosh is having relations with me. I'm his wife, but it's against my will. But if I go in on purpose, now it'll be as though I'm going with my will. Because that's what Achashverosh doesn't know much more about women except for that, having sexual relations. So he says, if I go in now, as it's going to be that I'm not being raped, it's like I am an active, willful participant. And that's what he says, kasher ivarti, if I get lost, I'll be lost. As soon as I began to go to be destroyed, so I'll go and I'll die. Right? If I have to die, so I'll die now. In other words, what was my thought, says Esther? I thought, listen, I'll wait a little while, maybe he'll call me, maybe not. Meanwhile, I'll keep it secret. Says, no, you have to go right now. And this is going to be, you see, Esther is going to develop a very complicated psychological plan over here. She's going to make 2 big meals and everything. We'll see. According to the Midrash, it says, Kavarti Beit Abba, just like I was lost at the house of my father, I'll be lost from you also. Then now, if I'm going in and having marital relations with Achashverosh on purpose, and he's a non-Jew, so I'll be forbidden to you. Now, this is going according to the opinion that Esther was married. Rashi holds this opinion that she was married to Mordechai. She was married to Mordechai. He says, I'm going to be forbidden to you. And really, it's talked about in the Gemara, how was it really permissible that she could have relations with her, but that's not the topic right now. Mordechai did, Vayavor Mordechai, he said, Mordechai transgressed the Torah, and he did everything that she said. What did she say? How did he transgress the Torah? Said the first day of this fast is Passover. She fasted for 3 days. So Mordechai declared a fast for everybody. Everybody's going to fast now for 3 days. What are the 3 days? The first day of Passover, the second day of Passover. This was not in the land of Israel. 2 days of Passover. And that they're fasting on the 14th day of Nisan, the 15th day of Nisan, and the 16th day of Nisan. In other words, the night of Passover, because on the 13th day of Nisan, that's when all these letters were sent out to kill all the Jews. So that year, nobody ate matzah on Passover. They fasted, and we're going to see the day right after that, right on the day right after that, on the 16th day. Well, on the 16th, that was when Haman was hung. Now, here's an interesting thing, and the Lubavitcher already points this out. I mean, how did she get this idea to fast for 3 days? It says that if a person fasts, he doesn't eat anything, so they, first of all, they don't look good after 3 days. And not only that, it says that there's a foul smell from a person's mouth. This person's breath is very bad after not eating for several days, for 3 days. So now she's supposed to be going into the king and making an impression on the king. The whole connection of her to the king is her beauty. And she's doing something the opposite of beauty. She should have had a good meal, right? Take a couple of shots of vodka or something and put on all sorts of perfumes and everything. Try to look nice. And then go into the king looking good. And then maybe the king will all of a sudden, she'll find favor in his eyes. But what happened was Esther realized that this whole thing was not normal. She realized that this was not a normal set of activities. That she's starting to put the whole puzzle together, and she realized this was a whole relationship, not between her and the king or the king and his past or whatever it was. It was only between the Jewish people and God. And the king was just a messenger. He was just in between the whole business. It had nothing to do with what the king thought or the king wanted or the king's will or the king's idea or the king's personality. It was just the Jews and God. So she decided, I got it. I got to figure it out. The Jewish people, they went against God. Because they went against God, so that's why we got this terrible decree that came on us from the blue sky, from nowhere. Right? We were all best friends with the king. He invited us to his meal. And all of a sudden, this decree to kill everybody. There's never been such a thing like that before. And why? Why does he want to kill the Jews? Well, the Jews didn't do anything to him. We were just buddies. Just a few months ago, years ago. And the Jews are paying their taxes, and all of a sudden, kill all the Jews. What are we killing all the Jews? It's like saying let's kill everybody who's got blonde hair or size 6 shoes or something. There's no reason for it. So she realized the Jews are God's people, and this whole thing is a decree from God, and we got to get out of it by returning to God. So she said, tell everyone in the interview to fast 3 days, which is not so easy to do. Try to fast for 3 days. So she's fasting for 3 days, and I'm going to go and see the king, and we're going to see what's happening. And that's what it is. Mordechai said, okay, to do it. And not only that, this was the 3 days. When was it? It was the first and the second days of Passover also. Okay, let's go a little bit further. Let's see how we can do this, how we do this. There we go. I did it last time. 1 minute. What did I do? I did something wrong. 1 minute. Chapter 5. How do we get to chapter 5? No, doesn't get me to chapter 5. Just 1 minute. We're not giving up. We are not giving up. Well, I did something last time, and I don't remember what it was, but it worked. No, that did not work. I thought I did the same thing I'm doing now, but for some reason it doesn't work this time. All right, let's go back. Let's go back to the beginning. Here we go. Back to the. No, that's going to go back to the whole business. All right, here we go. 1 second. Why doesn't this work? So all right, 1 second, excuse me. As you see, I am not very adept at figuring out what's going on over here, but it will. See, what am I going to do? What should I press? No, it's not it. Oh, no. No. Why isn't this not working? Why? All right, my friends, somehow or other, we're going to have to figure out how this is going on. What is happening here? Why I can't go back forward to the next chapter? Huh? To the next chapter. You know what? Let's see. Let's not try. Let's give it one more try. One more try. One more try. This is what I did last time. I'm almost sure. Oh, who knows? I'm pressing everything. So let's press this. Here we go. All right. So I got a better idea. Let's go back to the beginning here. There you go. No. There we go. Good. I don't know why it worked here, but it worked. Okay. Okay, see the next chapter. And it came to be in the third day of the fast, the third day of her fast. And Esther put on big day Malchut. She put on her royal garments. Kabash est Malchut. And she stood in the courtyard of the house of the king, the inner courtyard, opposite the house of the king. The king was sitting on his throne, Malchuto, in the house of kingship, and he was facing the entrance. He was facing the entrance, and here is Esther, 3-day fast. She put on her garments of kingship, of royalty. The rabbis say, Shalavata Ruach HaKodesh, she put on the garments of the king of the universe. The garments, she had all of a sudden a Holy Spirit enveloped her. Like it says, Varuach Lovsha et Amoshai. That she had, anyway. And so suddenly there fell upon her a spirit of holiness. And now the king sees her, Vayiki Rota Melech Esther. The king sees Esther, right? This was a movie, so whatever is the violin music or whatever is tense music is in the background. Omer Bechaser, what's the king going to say? Is he going to say off with her head? Nasachein Beinav. All of a sudden, the violins kick in with this beautiful, how do you say, pastoral music, and she finds favor in his eyes. And here it is, the big moment we've been waiting for. The Yoshed HaMelech L'Esther et Sharvit Zav. The king stuck out. He extended his staff, his scepter, golden scepter that was in his hand. And Esther came and she touched the scepter. She touched this golden scepter that was in his hands of the king. In other words, she's going to live. Vayomer Melech, and the king said to her, Malach Esther, Amalka, what do you want, Esther, the queen? And what is your request? Ad chetzia malchut ve'inatan lach. Ask for half of the kingship. up to half of the kingship, I'll give you whatever you want. Davershu be'emsa ubechetzi malchut hu beit hamikdash. What is this thing that's the Holy Temple? Now, we started off this whole thing, a little bit of history. So what was the history was that there was a king called Koresh, and Koresh, he was the king of Persia, and he conquered the whole world, and he took everything away from the whole Nebuchadnezzar's kingdom, took the whole thing away from him. Took the whole thing away. And he loved the Jews. Koresh loved the Jews, and he said the Jews could go back and rebuild the temple. But eventually Korach and the Jews started building the temple. But then the Samaritans, they made a lot of trouble. The Kutim, they made a lot of trouble for the Jews, and there was wars and everything with them. And so the Jews come along, Achashverosh, King Achashverosh, and these Shomronim, the Samaritans, they convinced him that the Jews were planning to make war against him, and he ordered that the temple cease being built. That's what he said. And that's now the whole story of he made this big meal, and all the Jewish people attended the meal, and then there was the decree. Now all of a sudden, Esther is approaching him, and Esther says, Esther approaches him, and he says to the queen, "Oh, you really find favor in my eyes. I'll give you up to half of the kingdom." What do you mean up to half of the kingdom? What's right in the middle of this kingdom? Half of the kingdom is the Holy Temple, that it began to be built in the days of Koresh, and Haman and Achashverosh commanded that it be stopped. And Achashverosh now, Achashverosh, now he's standing up there as Gamhu Bitla Malacha. He also said that we have to stop building it. And there was a king right in between them. I think it was Evil Mordech. Evil means something like God man or something like that. So it's his name, Evil Mordech. And Evil Mordech, he ordered that they should be stopped in the building of the temple. And and so he said, you want to request that it should be rebuilt? We can start building? Okay. And that's the midrashic meaning. The simple meaning is that even if you ask me half of the kingship, I'll give it to you. But he just went berserk. He saw her, and he really, just said, anything you want, I'll give you. How could I have forgotten about you? So Esther says to the king like this, listen, if the king really wants to, if you're willing to give me half of the kingdom, so don't give me half of the kingdom. I would like you and Haman to come today to a meal that I am making. Meal that I'm going to make for him. Now, as far as I understand, Esther was still fasting because this is the third day of the fast. But anyway, he says, I want you to come to the meal. It says, the rabbis say, there's a lot of reasons. Why didn't Esther just say, oh, yeah, you like me so much? So what do you say? Rescind the decree. Take the thing back. Why did he say come to this meal? Why? Says a lot of reasons. One of them was that when everyone saw that she invited Haman, in order that will make the king and his ministers jealous. The king will think that how could she equate the king with Haman together? Maybe he would think that Haman and Esther have some sort of a plot. Maybe they're going to kill me. And other reasons. They say that there's another reason is that when all the Jewish people see that she invited Haman, so the Jewish people might think that now their last hope was gone. Their only hope is God. And they'll start praying to God. They'll think, well, Haman also has convinced Esther to be with her. Anyway, he says, let's go to the meal. All the meals were called wine meals because wine, and that was the main thing of the meal. Just do one more, and then the king said, hurry up, Haman, to come and do the word of Esther. And Haman came to the meal that Esther made. As we are going to continue, God willing, tomorrow what happens in these meals. You're going to see that Esther makes a second meal, and the second meal, that's when things really start to turn around, and the whole wheel turns back, and the Jewish people are saved. But we're going to see the second meal, God willing, tomorrow. Thank you very much. Have a good day with Mashiach now.